Something about Iceland draws you back. I just think it's so interesting how you can wake up and something can look completely different. Preparing for a trip in the countryside of a place that has such unpredictable and intense fluctuations in weather, you have to really just bring everything you can think of. Knowing how long I'll be away is sometimes a bit of a challenge. I've had many instances, one in particular where I got stuck in an area due to a flood, and 5 days later was still working out how I'd get home. But it opened the door to some of my most well-known photos, so you never know what you're going to get. For me, I feel like every mission to the mountains ends up with just a snippet of a story that's told more so over multiple trips and maybe over a long period of time where things maybe are changing seasonal or in a way of like day-to-day weather and how the light changes. So I feel like my bodies of work and the collections of images that I curate together come from multiple shoots rather than one. When I take photos in Iceland, I'm looking for the subtle changes, the textures that shift as the seasons take hold of the landscape, and the ways in which, for instance, the peaks that line the mountains here. There's so many crazy rugged structures that come jut out of the mountaintops, and just how the clouds form around these structures. And I find all of those elements to the mountains really interesting, and I actually find myself shooting more textural telephotos based images rather than wide landscape scenes. I think it's just a progression beyond being wowed by the entirety of the landscape in front of you and then thinking, well, wait, what is this landscape made of, and what are the things that are actually changing here on a day-to-day basis? And those kind of things lead to photographing the finer details. I think focusing on the way that light interacts with the mountains here and not so much the more easily accessible wider landscape scenes, I think has created a bit of I guess it's a unique insight into the nature here. And I think people hadn't really, especially caught on to someone that was primarily focused on the worst possible weather conditions as being the best for photos. I think that was something that people were really interested in seeing. And because just like me, I've been a tourist and now a local here, and I know both sides, and I know that a lot of people that travel here are really, really taken and inspired by their experiences in the harsh weather here. Moving to Iceland for me was extremely unexpected and unplanned. And in fact, I had this dream of living in London for the longest time. So I put that into action by studying there for half a year. And it led to many, many nights with the college students in the campus dorm rooms and overhearing a conversation about Iceland. Within the space of one day, had a whole trip booked and ready to go for the coming month. Something about Iceland draws you back, I feel. I think it's especially prominent, this feeling when you travel here on your own and you have solo experiences in the nature. And this feeling just grew and swelled kind of inside of me over time, and it just was eventually so strong that I felt like this was the place that I had to live. And so I dragged my girlfriend Amy along and we decided to move here. I think for me, the career came much later than the passion and interest in photography, which was what I used all of my spare time for many years to do whilst working a regular, normal job I was actually working here in a hostel, just making beds. And photography was very much just the passion outlet for me. And eventually it grew to a stage where people were showing real interest in what I was doing, and it kind of led itself naturally to become an avenue of work, which was, of course, gradually increasing, was on the side, and then more prominent, and then more prominent, and then eventually I had to essentially drop everything in order to make the jump into photography as a career. I mean, there was definitely a desire for that career path, but it never felt attainable. So hence it became a hobby for me, and I actually had studied accounting and finance. That's what I have a degree in on paper. And I really feel like, this natural progression just led to the career on its own, more so than me specifically in the beginning pursuing a passion. I mean, I moved to Iceland not knowing what the heck I would be doing. Absolutely had no idea. Looking into the ways in which I've got to the point that I am now, it's largely based on going off of instinct, not being heavily influenced, and just kind of going with the flow and reacting to the scenes around me and to nature and to, of course, like also my business environment. Not trying to let stress and I guess negativity impact your journey in photography. And just trying to go into every shoot with an open mind and try and shoot everything. Just look around and take close-up, take wide shots, take shots of the textures, take shots of the sky. Just take as much as you can, and over time you'll develop somewhat of a style, or you develop like some sort of cohesion across shoots, and you'll start to see trends in things that you find interesting. But if you force it, then maybe you'll miss a few things. You'll miss potential things that could have been amazing photos. The social media things have taken me by complete surprise. I moved here with no social media base. It was very much the beginning when I moved here. And it's just naturally turned into me having enough material to put things out to the world every day for quite a long time. And I think having the rhythm and the consistency allowed my work to travel far on the internet, and created a network of people and passionate Iceland supporters of some kind, allowed them to find my work. It's definitely amazing what's come of it, but I was definitely not expecting it. For me, social media isn't a day-to-day journal. For me, it's more of like a timeless portfolio. So things can appear that were shot a year ago or yesterday. For me, it doesn't matter. It's more about how they look visually together. So if I have like a summer image with a green mountain, maybe I'll wait until it's surrounded by monochromatic. Maybe there's only like white and gray and it's a snowy scene, and maybe that green photo can slot into the grid in a point where it doesn't clash with other colorful images. As it goes for photography these days in the digital world, it's actually quite rare to see an image printed on a piece of paper and hold it in your hand. And of course, like, especially when you get an image that you really resonate with, at least for me, I just really want to see it on a massive print and see what it looks like to stand and not see it on a screen anymore, but see it in person and analyze it from a different perspective. And that's led to, of course, wanting to curate and come up with collections of my images that have an overall message. And whether it's themes of Icelandic nature or the Arctic in general, exhibiting my work in a public setting in the physical world is definitely a dream, and something that I've been fortunate enough to be able to do with the print space. Well, obviously, for Amy and I moving here, we have to be away from our family. And as with anyone that works away from home, that is like a massive sacrifice. For me to follow my dream meant moving across the world so far, as far away from my family as you could possibly be. Thankfully, technology allows us to remain connected, crazily even more connected than if I was there in person, because you have this longing to constantly update each other and be in absolute regular contact. My main criteria when I'm reviewing the bulk of the photos, which can sometimes, may range from 500 shots for a day of shooting to 1,000 to even 2,000 if I get carried away with something. I'm always looking for, when I'm scrolling through my catalog, interesting light, maybe like one bright burst of light. The overall scene may not look so appealing, but within that one burst of light is a lot of opportunity for the edit. Or I'm looking for an interesting shape that can be maybe pronounced with some editing techniques, or maybe an interesting texture that is applied to the entire frame that you've captured, and maybe you can get something a little bit more abstract. Those are the things that stand out when I'm scrolling through. The actual aesthetic of a set of work as a whole generally comes first, because I think it's about getting the viewer's attention, or getting them to stop for a second and actually look into the photos that you've created. And I think that the way they look as a set is a big factor in getting someone to engage with your work. I would love to be able to look back and firstly know that I have inspired people to travel in a conservative and safe way in Iceland. That's the biggest thing that I am trying to push through my social media and through my photography, and then creating an overall vision of a way of life for someone who dropped everything to pursue their dream.